I remember the day I gave up my car keys like it was yesterday. The doctor had said my eyesight wasn't sharp enough for night driving. And my son, Daniel, immediately jumped in with that soft, patronizing tone adult children use when they think they're being kind. "Mom, don't worry," he said, patting my hand like I was fragile glass. "We'll visit every weekend. You won't even notice the difference." I smiled, because I'd heard that line before. From him, from my daughter, from every well-meaning person who promised to stay in touch once I wasn't as convenient. The first weekend, I baked a pie. I even set the table for 2, expecting him to show up with his wife and the kids. But by sunset, my phone was still silent. By Sunday night, I got a text. "Sorry, Mom, crazy weekend. Next time for sure." Next time never came. Week after week, the pie crusts went stale, and the house grew quieter. Even the clock on the wall seemed to tick slower, reminding me how time passes differently when no one's waiting for you. One morning, I looked out at my dusty driveway where my car used to sit and thought, is this what aging gracefully looks like? Sitting still while everyone else moves on? So, I made myself a cup of tea, sat down with my checkbook, and did something my family never expects. I made a plan. The next day, I took the bus into town. The driver, a cheerful young woman with bright red hair, smiled at me. "You're brave," she said. "Most older folks don't try the bus system." I laughed. "Honey, bravery isn't what you call it when you have no other choice." But I didn't stop at the bus. By the end of the week, I'd sold my car, the same one Daniel insisted he'd help maintain but never touched. And I bought myself something better, a shiny red scooter. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine. When I brought it home, the neighbor across the street, Mrs. Langley, peeked through her curtains. She came outside, waving her hands. "Margaret!" "At your age?" I smiled. "Mrs. Langley, at my age, I've stopped asking permission to live." The first few rides were clumsy. I wobbled, I laughed, and yes, I fell once, right into a hedge. But every time I got back up, I felt something I hadn't in months, alive. Then came the day I decided to really test it. A Saturday morning, the one Daniel once called Family Day. I packed a basket with homemade lasagna, a pie, and a bottle of apple cider. I tied my scarf under my chin like my mother used to do and started the scooter. The engine hummed softly, like a heartbeat reminding me that mine still worked just fine. 2 hours later, I was outside Daniel's gated community. I could see his kids' bikes leaning against the garage. My heart raced, not from the ride, but from the thought of seeing his face. Because I hadn't told him I was coming, I parked right in front of his house, dusted off my coat, and rang the doorbell. When he opened the door, he froze. "Mom, how did you get here?" I grinned. "Oh, I got a little help. From Horsepower. 2 of them, to be exact." He blinked, looking past me toward the scooter gleaming in the driveway. His neighbors, who were out walking their dog, had already stopped to stare. "Daniel," I said sweetly, "you said you'd visit every weekend, but since that didn't work out, I figured I'd bring the weekend to you." Daniel stood in the doorway like a deer caught in headlights. His wife, Melissa, appeared behind him, holding a coffee mug mid-sip. When she saw me standing there, her eyes widened, that polite, frozen smile people wear when they're not sure whether to hug you or shut the door. "Margaret," she finally said, her voice high and brittle. "What a surprise." "Surprise indeed," I said, holding up my basket. "I brought dinner. Figured we could eat together like old times." Melissa hesitated, then stepped aside. "Oh, that's so thoughtful of you." "We were just about to order takeout." I finished for her with a little grin. "Well, tonight you can take out the plates instead." Inside, their house looked like a magazine cover. Spotless, modern, a little too perfect. The smell of citrus cleaner hit me before I even reached the kitchen. I noticed the fridge covered in the kids' drawings, not one of them with Grandma written anywhere. I set my basket down, unwrapped the foil, and the smell of my lasagna filled the room. Melissa's nose twitched. She used to beg me for this recipe before she married Daniel. "Grandma's here," one of the kids shouted, running down the stairs. My heart lifted. Little Sophie threw her arms around my waist. "We didn't know you were coming." "I didn't know either," I said softly, patting her hair. It was a last-minute adventure. Daniel cleared his throat. "Mom, You really shouldn't be riding that scooter all the way out here. It's not safe. I turned to him, steady and calm. What's not safe, Daniel, is sitting home waiting for a visit that never comes. That silenced the room. Even the clock on their wall seemed to pause. Melissa forced a smile. Let's eat, shall we? During dinner, I told them stories. Not the ones about the old days they usually roll their eyes at, but funny little things about my scooter lessons, about Mrs. Langley yelling from her porch, about the young mechanic who called me cool. The kids giggled. Even Melissa laughed once or twice. Daniel just sat there watching me. I could see it in his face. That mix of guilt and confusion when you realize someone stronger than you gave them credit for. After dessert, I stood up to wash the dishes. Melissa protested, but I waved her off. Let me. It's been a while since I've had a family sink full of plates to clean. When I turned back, Daniel was leaning against the counter. Mom, he started, his voice low. You shouldn't have had to come all this way. I should have... Visited? I finished, drying my hands. Called? Checked in? He nodded, ashamed. Yeah, I placed my hand over his. You're not a bad son, Daniel. Just a busy one. But don't confuse being busy with being caring. They're not the same thing. He swallowed hard. Melissa looked away. Just then, one of the neighbors knocked on the door. A woman named Pam, I think. She peeked in, smiling awkwardly. Oh, you must be Daniel's mom. We saw you pull up earlier. That scooter is adorable. Daniel's face turned red. Pam, this is... his mother, I said, stepping forward with a smile. The one who apparently doesn't get out much. Pam laughed, a little too loudly. Well, you certainly showed him otherwise. As she left, Daniel groaned. Mom, the whole neighborhood saw you park that thing in the driveway. Good, I said. They should know you still have a mother, and that she rides in style. Melissa snorted, covering her mouth to hide her laugh. I looked at Daniel then, not with anger, but something softer. Sweetheart, I said, you can't hide your family, especially not the parts that remind you where you came from. He exhaled slowly, the tension in his shoulders melting. I'm sorry, Mom, I really am. I didn't mean to make you feel forgotten. You didn't make me feel forgotten, I replied gently. You made me remember who I was before I started waiting for permission to matter. By the time I left that evening, the kids were hugging my legs. Melissa had packed me leftovers for the road, and Daniel had promised to visit next week. As I stepped outside, the air was cool and crisp, smelling faintly of rain. I put on my helmet, adjusted my scarf, and started my scooter. Daniel followed me to the driveway. Mom, he said quietly, people are going to talk after tonight. I smiled at him through the visor. Let them. Every good story deserves an audience. And with that, I revved the engine and drove off, the streetlights glinting off the scooter's chrome as I disappeared into the night. A little old lady, with a full tank of independence and no regrets. A week after that dinner, I woke up to the sound of my phone buzzing nonstop. Daniel, missed calls, texts, even a voicemail that started with a sigh and ended with, Mom, I think you've started a neighborhood revolution. I chuckled, slipping on my robe and heading for the kitchen. The coffee machine gurgled as I pressed play. His voice came through, sheepish, flustered, and more than a little proud. Mom, everyone's talking about you. Pam told her book club that you rode up like some movie heroine on that scooter. Apparently her husband wants to buy one now. Melissa says you broke the internet in the neighborhood group chat. I think they kinda love you. I nearly spit out my coffee. About time, I muttered. Then came another call, this time Melissa. Hi, Mom, she said, her voice lighter than I'd ever heard it. We wanted to invite you over again, for Sunday dinner. The kids can't stop asking when Grandma's coming back. Also, I was wondering, could you show me how to make that lasagna? I think I finally want to learn. Now that made me smile. I agreed, of course, but this time, I didn't wait around for someone else to handle the plans. I picked the time, brought dessert, and showed up early, scooter and all. When I arrived, something felt different. The door swung open before I even knocked, and both grandkids came tumbling out, screaming, Grandma! They wrapped themselves around me, nearly knocking me over. Inside, the table was already set for 5. My favorite seat was waiting, complete with a little note that said, reserved for the coolest grandma. Melissa met my eyes, half shy, half proud. "We saved you a seat," she said softly. It hit me right then. How much those small gestures mean when you've spent years being an afterthought. Dinner was warm and easy. We laughed, we teased. Daniel even brought up my scooter again, saying he might buy one too. "You?" I laughed. "You'd never survive on one of those things." He grinned. "Maybe not, but I'll follow behind in the car, just to make sure you don't outrun me." After dinner, we all went for a little ride around the neighborhood, me on the scooter, Daniel and the family walking behind. The sun had just set, the air glowing orange and gold. As we passed Pam's house, she waved from her porch, shouting, "Go, Scooter Queen!" The kids burst out laughing. Daniel groaned. "Great, that's sticking, isn't it?" "Oh, definitely," I said, smiling proudly. Later that night, back at home, I sat by my window with a cup of tea. My reflection in the glass looked older, sure, a few more lines, a little more silver in my hair, but my eyes felt brighter. For so long, I'd accepted being the one waiting for calls that never came, invitations that got lost, promises that faded into silence. But that night at Daniel's house changed something. Not because they finally included me, but because I stopped needing permission to include myself. You see, getting older doesn't make you smaller. It just gives you better perspective. We think family means they'll always make room for us, but sometimes we have to remind them that we built the table they're sitting at. I picked up my phone and opened Facebook. Yes, Facebook. The same app my grandson once said I didn't get. I typed a little post and hit share. Some people wait for family to remember them. Others write in and remind them who they are. Signed, the Scooter Queen. Within minutes, the likes started pouring in. Old friends from church, neighbors, even Melissa commented a heart emoji. And then my grandson. He commented, "Proud of you, Grandma. You're trending again." That made me laugh out loud. A few days later, I was out in town when a young woman stopped me. "Excuse me," she said, pointing to my scooter. "Are you the lady who posted that quote? The one who surprised her family?" I blinked. "Maybe," she grinned. "That story's been going around my mom's Facebook group." "You're kind of a legend?" I smiled. "Well, legends need to stretch their legs too." When I rode home that evening, the wind was cool, and for once, I didn't feel small or left behind. I felt seen, because being forgotten isn't the worst thing in the world. The worst thing is forgetting who you were before you stop being seen. And that will never happen to me again.